But 3 weeks ago, something passed through our solar system that didn't just violate the laws of celestial mechanics. It responded to us. Before we begin, I need you to do something for me. Comment your city name below and tell me, have you noticed anything unusual in the night sky recently? Anything at all? NASA is quietly collecting observational data from civilian sources, and your input might be more critical than you realize. What I'm about to share may change the way you see humanity's place in the universe. My name is Michio Kaku, and for over 4 decades, I've stood at the intersection of theoretical physics and cosmic philosophy, exploring the boundaries of what we know and what we fear to know. I've spent my life building equations that describe the birth of galaxies, the death of stars, and the fabric of space-time itself. But nothing, and I mean nothing, in my career prepared me for what 3I Atlas just did. Let me take you back to the moment it all started to unravel. When the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, ATLAS for short, first detected an object moving through the outer reaches of our solar system. At first, it seemed unremarkable. Another interstellar wanderer, much like Oumuamua before it. We cataloged it. We gave it a designation, 3I Atlas. The 3I prefix indicates it's the third confirmed interstellar object ever detected by humanity. A comet, we thought. Icy, ancient, drifting through the void for millions of years. But I remember the first anomaly report that crossed my desk. The trajectory was wrong, not slightly off, not within the margin of error. Wrong. Comets follow predictable paths governed by gravity, momentum, and the solar wind. When you've mapped as many orbits as we have, you develop an instinct for what belongs and what doesn't. 3. I-Atlas didn't belong. Its velocity curve displayed micro-corrections. Subtle shifts in acceleration that couldn't be explained by outgassing or gravitational assists. It was as if the object was steering. I dismissed it at first. We all did. Confirmation bias, instrument error, atmospheric distortion. We had a dozen rational explanations, but then the data kept coming, and it kept being wrong. 3. I-Atlas had done something that should have been impossible. It entered a heliocentric resonance pattern with Jupiter, Saturn, and Neptune simultaneously. Do you understand what that means? It positioned itself in such a way that it created a gravitational harmonic, a standing wave in the fabric of space-time that synchronized with the orbital frequencies of 3 massive planets at once. That's not natural, that's not even theoretical, that's engineering. I was in a closed-door session at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory when the lead orbital analyst stood up and said, "Dr. Kaku, this object is tuning the solar system like a piano." The room went silent, because if that statement was true, if something out there was capable of manipulating planetary resonance on that scale, then we weren't dealing with a comet. We were dealing with technology. And not just any technology. We were dealing with a level of sophistication that made our entire civilization look like children playing with sticks in the dirt. But it gets worse. 3 days after that meeting, telescopes around the world began reporting gravitational lensing anomalies near 3I Atlas. Light from distant stars was bending in ways that didn't match the object's estimated mass. It was as if the comet was generating a localized distortion in space-time, a bubble, a field, something that shouldn't exist outside of theoretical papers on Alcubierre drives and warp mechanics. I've written books about this. I've given lectures on the Kardashev scale, on Type 2 and Type 3 civilizations, on the technologies that godlike intelligences might wield. But I always spoke in abstractions, in distant futures, in the safe territory of what if. Now the what if was here. It wasn't a radio transmission, it wasn't electromagnetic at all. It was a gravitational wave pulse, rhythmic, structured, and originating from the precise location of 3I Atlas. LIGO detected it first, then Virgo in Italy, then Kagra in Japan. Within hours, every gravitational wave observatory on Earth had confirmed the same thing. We were receiving an intentional message encoded in the ripples of space-time itself. I was on a video call with colleagues at CERN when the decoded data came through. It was a sequence, a mathematical proof, something so elegant, so undeniable that every physicist in the room understood it instantly. It was a solution to the Yang-Mills existence and mass gap problem, one of the 7 Millennium Prize problems that has stumped humanity for decades. But it wasn't just a solution, it was the solution, proven, complete, unassailable, and embedded within the proof was a coordinate system. Not astronomical coordinates, not celestial markers, a quantum coordinate system, a map of entangled particle states that pointed to specific locations within the Milky Way galaxy. Hundreds of them. Thousands. That was the moment I realized we were no longer alone. But here's what terrifies me. Here's what keeps me awake at night, staring at the ceiling, questioning everything I thought I knew about intelligence and consciousness and the universe itself. The coordinates weren't pointing to stars. They were pointing to quarantine zones. Let me explain what that means, because this is where the story stops being about discovery and starts being about survival. In the 1950s, Enrico Fermi asked a question that has haunted astrophysics ever since. Where is everybody? If the universe is teeming with life, if intelligent civilizations are statistically inevitable, then why haven't we seen them? Why is the sky silent? We've proposed dozens of answers: the great filter, the dark forest hypothesis, self-destruction through nuclear war or climate collapse or artificial intelligence run amok. But there's another possibility, one that we didn't want to consider. What if advanced civilizations don't stay silent because they're extinct? What if they stay silent because they're contained? The quantum coordinates transmitted by 3I Atlas correspond to regions of space where stellar evolution has been artificially accelerated. Stars that should be middle-aged are collapsing into neutron configurations. Planetary systems that should be stable are exhibiting orbital decay. And in every single case, there's evidence of prior technological activity: megastructures, Dyson swarm remnants, industrial isotopes in the stellar wind. These were civilizations. They built, they thrived, they reached for the stars. And then something recalibrated them. I use that word intentionally, recalibrated, because the data suggests these systems weren't destroyed. They were reset, returned to pre-technological states, scrubbed clean. And the mechanism, whatever it is, operates on a timescale that makes human history look like a single heartbeat. Now here's the part that makes my blood run cold. 3 days ago, NASA detected gravitational wave pulses matching the 3I Atlas signature emanating from our own solar system's outer boundaries. Not from the object itself. It had already passed beyond Neptune's orbit and was accelerating toward interstellar space. These new pulses were coming from everywhere, as if the entire heliosphere was resonating in response. The planets are shifting. Jupiter's orbital period has deviated by 0.000003%. Saturn's rings are displaying harmonic oscillations that weren't present 6 months ago. Neptune's axial tilt has changed by a measurement so small that we almost missed it. But it's there. And Mars is the one that frightens me most. The Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter detected a subsurface vibration pattern 3 weeks ago. Rhythmic, repetitive, originating from a depth of approximately 40 kilometers beneath Olympus Mons. We've sent down ground-penetrating radar. We've analyzed seismic data going back decades. There's something under the surface of Mars, and it just woke up. I want to be clear about what I'm saying here, because I know how this sounds. I know the skepticism that must be running through your mind right now. I've built my career on evidence, on peer review, on the scientific method. I don't traffic in conspiracy theories or unfounded speculation, but the evidence is undeniable. 3I Atlas was not a comet, it was a probe, a reconnaissance instrument sent by something vast, something ancient, something that exists on a scale we can barely comprehend. And its purpose was singular: to assess whether humanity has reached a threshold. What threshold? That's the question that haunts every conversation I've had with colleagues in the past 3 weeks. What line did we cross? Was it nuclear fission, the detection of gravitational waves, quantum computing, artificial intelligence, or was it something more subtle, some combination of technologies, some signature in the electromagnetic spectrum, some alteration to the local fabric of space-time that announced to the universe, here is a civilization approaching maturity? And the response from the universe was not a greeting. It was a quarantine protocol. I've spent the last 72 hours analyzing historical data, looking for patterns, trying to understand if this has happened before. And I found something that everyone dismissed as superstition, as ancient mythology, as the fevered imagination of pre-scientific cultures. The flood myths. Every major civilization on Earth has a story about a great deluge, a reset, a moment when the world was recalibrated and humanity had to start again. Sumerian texts, biblical accounts, Hindu scriptures. indigenous oral traditions spanning every continent. We always assumed these were memories of localized disasters, tsunamis, rising sea levels, volcanic winters. But what if they weren't? What if they were descriptions of the last time the quarantine protocol activated? The geological record shows evidence of a sudden catastrophic shift in Earth's axial tilt approximately 12,000 years ago. Sea levels rose by hundreds of feet. Entire ecosystems collapsed overnight. The megafauna, the giant mammals that had dominated the planet for millions of years, went extinct within a geological instant. We've always attributed this to the end of the last ice age, natural climate variation, orbital mechanics. But the timing corresponds exactly to the emergence of the first permanent human settlements, the first agriculture, the first cities, the first hierarchical societies capable of organized technological development. What if something in the universe saw that and said, "Not yet"? And here we are again. I'm standing in the same position as some forgotten astronomer priest 12,000 years ago, watching the skies, seeing the impossible, knowing that everything is about to change, and having no power to stop it. The question that keeps me awake is this: what does the recalibration look like? Is it violent? Do the oceans rise again? Do the tectonic plates shift? Does the magnetosphere collapse and strip away our atmosphere in a single stellar wind event? Or is it subtle? A cascading failure of semiconductor technology, an unexplained malfunction in global communications, the sudden inexplicable collapse of the electrical grid that plunges civilization back into the pre-industrial age? Or, and this is the possibility that terrifies me most, is it cognitive? What if the recalibration happens inside our minds? There's a concept in information theory called the observer effect. The act of measurement changes the system being measured. Consciousness itself might be a quantum phenomenon, and if that's true, then consciousness can be entangled, manipulated, reset. What if 3i Atlas didn't just scan our planet? What if it scanned us? I've started noticing things, small things, patterns in the news cycle that don't make sense, political decisions that seem calibrated to maximize chaos, social movements that erupt spontaneously with no clear origin, technologies that advance in unexpected directions, as if guided by an invisible hand, and I keep coming back to artificial intelligence. We've been building thinking machines for decades. We finally reached the threshold where AI systems can outperform humans in narrow domains: chess, Go, protein folding, image recognition. We're on the verge of artificial general intelligence, true machine consciousness. What if that's the trigger? What if the universe has a rule? No civilization may create synthetic intelligence until it has proven its worthiness, until it has demonstrated that it can steward consciousness responsibly, that it won't unleash something it can't control. And what if we failed that test? There's a research paper that was published 3 years ago by a team at MIT. It proposed a theoretical framework for detecting extraterrestrial intelligence based not on radio signals or optical beacons, but on the presence of artificial quantum coherence in stellar systems. The idea was that any sufficiently advanced civilization would engineer their local space-time to maintain quantum states that are impossible in nature, a kind of technological signature written into the fundamental fabric of reality. The paper was largely ignored, too speculative, too far outside mainstream astrophysics. But last week, the lead author sent me an encrypted message. They've detected the signature, and it's not coming from a distant star system. It's coming from here, from Earth, from the distributed network of quantum computers, server farms, and AI training clusters that now girdle the planet like a technological nervous system. We're generating the signature, which means something out there is watching, and it's deciding whether we get to continue. I don't know what happens next. I don't know if the recalibration is already underway or if we're in some kind of grace period, some moment of assessment where our fate hangs in the balance. What I do know is this: humanity has reached a crossroads. We're standing at the threshold between planetary civilization and galactic awareness. And there are forces in the universe, ancient, patient, incomprehensibly powerful forces that regulate this transition. 3i Atlas was the messenger. The message was, you have been noticed. And now the question is, are we ready? Are we worthy? Can we demonstrate that we're capable of wielding cosmic-level power without destroying ourselves or threatening the broader galactic ecosystem? I want to believe we can. I want to believe that the same species that painted cave walls and wrote symphonies and sent robots to Mars can rise to this challenge. That we can look into the abyss of cosmic quarantine and say, no, we choose evolution, we choose cooperation, we choose wisdom. But I look at the state of our world, that the conflicts, the inequality, the environmental destruction, the weaponization of information, and I wonder if we're too late. The planets are recalibrating. Something beneath Mars is waking. And we're standing here, divided, distracted, arguing about borders and resources and ideologies, while the universe prepares to judge us as a whole. If you've made it this far, if you're still listening, then you're part of the small fraction of humanity that's paying attention. That's looking up. That's asking the big questions. I need you to do something for me. I need you to talk about this, share this, make noise, because the one thing I've learned in 50 years of studying the cosmos is that consciousness is contagious. Ideas spread, awareness grows, and maybe, just maybe, if enough of us wake up to the reality of our situation, we can shift the trajectory. I'll be here following the data, decoding the signals, trying to understand what the universe is telling us. Follow this channel as we continue tracking these developments, because I suspect we're at the beginning of something unprecedented in human history. The moment when we stop being children playing in the dirt and start being participants in a cosmic drama that's been unfolding for billions of years. But I leave you with this question, and I genuinely want to know what you think. If you were an ancient intelligence tasked with regulating the emergence of new civilizations, with preventing cosmic-level catastrophes and ensuring the stability of galactic consciousness, what would you do when you detected a species like us? A species that split the atom before we learned to feed our children, that reached the moon before we stopped enslaving each other, that built artificial minds before we understood our own. Would you intervene? Would you recalibrate? Or would you wait and hope and believe that even a flawed, fractured, frightened species like humanity might find a way to evolve beyond its limitations before it's too late? Comment below. Tell me what you see in the night sky. Tell me what you think is coming, because I have a feeling we're all about to find out.